Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name's Kirsten Zoller. I am the Director of Professional Education and Outreach on the Polytechnic campus, and I'm joined this evening by three online students who are looking forward to sharing their experiences as an online learner with you today. We don't have a formal presentation. We do have some questions to get the panelists started off with, but I would encourage you to include any questions that you have about online learning.
I'm not sure if Kirsten just froze for me or for all of you. Okay, I'll give her a couple minutes and see if she can come back on. Hi, Kirsten, you froze up.
I am so sorry. I don't know what happened. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. My Zoom crashed and it came back. I apologize. I don't know how much of that you heard. Long story short, our students are excited to share with you. And if you have questions, include them in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves now. Bonnie, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. My name is Bonnie Brubieska. I am a student in the College of Business, majoring in human resources with a minor in management. I live in Southwest Kansas near Garden City. And I've been an online student since the spring of 19. And I anticipate graduating next spring in 21.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. Christine, how about you?
Hi, this is Christine Diven. Have been an online student for probably going on 5 years. I'm taking the turtle approach to coursework, one course a semester as I do a full-time job. But I've been with K-State the whole time, potentially graduating around end of this year, maybe first semester of 2021.
Great, thank you. And Antoinette?
Hi, I'm Antoinette Starks. I'm also an undergraduate in the College of Human Health and Human Services, and I have a minor in leadership studies. I live in Kansas City, Kansas, and I have been an online student since fall of 2017. I came back to K-State after being gone for 20 years, so it's definitely been an adjustment, but I should be graduating next spring. So I'm super excited about that.
Wonderful. Glad you made it back.
Me too.
On that note, let's start with you, Antoinette, and talk to us about why did you choose to be an online student, especially when you were looking at coming back to higher ed?
Sure. Well, I chose online because number one, I work full time. I have 2 children. I'm a mom. I'm a single mom. And so I needed something that could work with my schedule. I couldn't attend classes, no one to keep the children. And I just wanted to be able to study well into the night if I needed to, and kind of, I don't know, more or less take it at my own pace. And so K-State Online Studies has definitely given me that ability to do that.
Great, thank you. That flexibility is key, and I think something all of us understand that online students in particular are looking for. Christine, how about you? Do you have anything to add about your choice to become an online learner? Christine, you might be on mute. We're having trouble hearing you.
Apologies. I would echo Antoinette that the flexibility was definitely attractive. And then my coursework is the didactic program in dietetics towards getting a registered dietitian degree. And I originally tried to do a local school, and the quality of education was not there. And digging deeper, I found that they had they had been looked into a lot of times by the academy, and in-person wasn't an option for me. So I started looking what are online schools that offer this coursework, and it was really K-State that stood out as, I think there's maybe one other that does this online course offering. And long story short, this was the most quality way to get my education.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that K-State was the quality you needed. We feel that way too. Bonnie, how about you? What made you choose to become an online learner?
Pretty much what they echoed. I've got my own businesses and I'm a single mom of one. And I just I started at K-State like 30 years ago and then just came back. So I just pretty much wanted to, my daughter's going to be a senior this fall, and I just pretty much wanted to finish so I could kind of show her the quality, what good quality education would be like. So that's my main reason.
That's wonderful. Very good. So from here on out, I'll ask a question and all three of you can answer, or whoever would like to jump in first. The first question is, how do you approach online learning? Talk to us about your time management, your strategies to stay organized. What does that day-to-day look like for you when you're going through your class?
Well, I will go ahead and chime in. At first it took a lot of juggling, trying to figure out what's going to work. So what I have done personally for myself, certain days of the week are for certain classes, depending on how many classes I take, just to try and keep a balance, because most of my assignments are due on a Sunday evening. And another thing and I wrote it here in my notes, I really had to approach this with an open mind. This isn't, the traditional way of learning. And so just learning how to navigate the K-State, our area that we log into for our assignments. Each professor is different. Each teacher is different, and learning their styles. And so really, I guess, more than anything is just keeping an open mind and finding what's going to work for you, because everyone's schedule isn't the same. And so that's what I've done, and I've been pretty successful with that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, for my part, I've been a bit of a weekend warrior with my schooling, and I think that really works, probably because I just take one class a semester. If I had a heavier load, I don't think I could get away with that, but my job is in a PR firm, and I work like 50 to 60-hour weeks between Monday and Friday. And so then the weekends I unplug and focus just on schooling and reading all the textbooks and watching all the lectures and getting up to speed that way. And most classes are structured in a way that that's possible.
Bonnie, anything else you'd like to add?
Not really, just pretty much just organization is the key. I usually take about 3 classes a semester. And so I find for me, I try to do a little bit every day in one class. I try to get it done as quick as I can, so that way I can let that go and don't have to worry about it towards the end of the week. And it varies. Some days I'm just a Sunday night person that's trying to cram it all in, and some days, everything's done by Thursday.
So given what you all just shared about how you approach online learning, what strategies or course structures or different things like that have been really effective for you? And what would you recommend online instructors consider to help support how you approach online learning, whether that be from a positive experience or maybe a challenging experience in a previous course?
Recorded lectures.
Say one more time.
If nothing else, give us recorded lectures, please. Oh, Antoinette, you're on mute.
Yes.
I was just saying, hallelujah, yes. Record. If you can record the lecture, it's just so much more helpful. I did have a couple classes where at 6 o'clock, I had to be on. They were different semesters, but that was really challenging because if I got off of work, at 5 o'clock, there's no way that I could get home by 6, depending on traffic. And so I would stay at work, watch the lecture, jump in my car, rush across the highway to get home to my kids. And that was really, really challenging. So one of the notes that I wrote down that I think is very important for instructors is to be aware of the demographics of your students, that, not everybody's, fresh out of high school. You got some of us that our age, older people, we have families, we have children, we have full-time jobs, and to just be aware of that, especially when it comes to picking materials. It's really hard for a mom that has a couple kids and a full-time job to read 3 chapters in a week. I mean, it's just really, really hard, especially if you've got 3 or 4 different classes going at one time. So, and maybe we need to be more aware of our choices when we choose classes, but I'm just saying, being aware of your demographics, there's a huge, difference between all of your students, and just kind of know that.
Great points. Anything, Bonnie or Christine, you'd like to add to that?
I'd just like to add, I mean, the recorded lectures, yeah, is great. I've been fortunate. There's only been like one class that we had like to dial in at a certain time. And so I've been fortunate on that. The thing I would like to see more of is like when they post things, like normally they post things like Monday morning and that's your assignments for the week. It'd almost be nice to have like an announcement every week that says, okay, there are 3 video lectures. They're each 25 minutes long. That way you kind of know what time frames you're looking at, and 3 quizzes after that or whatever, because there's nothing more disheartening than logging onto a video lecture thinking it's only like 35 minutes and finding out it's an hour and 15. And I think any video lecture that's longer than an hour should probably be broken up into 2 pieces, because it's hard sometimes to stay that focused. Well, I don't even know about that focus for so long, but it just breaks it up a little bit. And, that way you can get a little bit here and a little bit there, especially when you're just sitting. I mean, if you're sitting with a personal lecture in a lecture hall is one thing where you have the interaction, but when you're sitting in front of a computer screen, just watching a lecture for over an hour, it's not good. You don't retain as much.
Bonnie, it's great that you brought that up. Melissa in the chat asked, what length of recorded lectures do you prefer and why? So you spoke to that really well. Christine or Antoinette, is there anything else you'd like to add about recorded lectures and how instructors can implement those in an effective way for students?
I have something so when instructors upload the lectures, some will give the date that it was recorded. And then if the content doesn't change for the next semester, they'll just upload those same videos with old dates. And it seems like a minor thing, but a lot of times it's helpful to pop into the video section and judge how behind you are by just looking at the date, or ahead you are. And if those dates aren't updated to the current semester, then it just adds an extra step of like pulling up the syllabus and cross-comparing to make sure that you're on track with where you need to be.
I see Antoinette shaking her head and agreeing as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, for me, it was just really confusing to see, dates from last year and just trying to figure out, okay, I'm like you, I would look at the syllabus and try to line them up. Okay, this is what I need to be watching. In addition to those things, I think that it is important for instructors. Of course, it depends on the course, but like right now I'm taking statistics, not at K-State. I have to take it at a local school here. And I gotta be honest, I've never seen a course where the instructor literally shows you the work. It helps me. I'm a visual learner more than I am, reading a book. And so that has helped me tremendously. I thought there's no way that I'm going to learn this until I looked at that instructor's videos and I'm like, oh my gosh. some of the best videos that I've had of instructors at K-State is where they tie it all together. Like, I'm not leaving that video empty of like, what the heck did I just watch that 30 minutes for? I mean, because I've had a few of those. It's like, okay, what was that all for? Because they didn't put content that tied back to the lesson. And it was honestly a waste of time. Sorry, but truthful.
Melissa has followed up with, I think, a great question. So, Hour is kind of pushing it for an online video lecture. I think that you've all agreed to that. But would you rather watch 2 30-minute videos or 4 15-minute videos? How chunked down would be appropriate, and maybe a little bit more about why you would prefer that setup?
To me, I think it depends on the subject material that you're teaching. Like my general calculus class that I'm taking this summer, she has it where we watch, they're usually between 8 to 12 minutes. And that's perfect for that because you can really concentrate on what you're doing in that particular time, go through the examples and stuff. But, there's other classes where a 30-minute video is fine too. I mean, that's just perfect. But for something more complex where it takes a lot of brain power, a lot of thinking, and a lot of learning, I think the shorter ones help. But as far as, I don't have a problem with the 30-minute ones at all.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer. I would echo that. Yeah, well said, Bonnie.
Great, thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about assignments. Sarah in the chat says, beyond video lectures, what assignments or activities have you found most helpful in learning material? I would expand on, think about what courses have been most engaging and where you've learned the most, and think about how that material was presented and what type of things that you were asked to do in that course.
I'll go first. I took a developmental course in aging, and what I enjoyed most about that class was that the material that he had, that we were learning, he also gave us videos to watch, like actual movies to watch. That really worked very well for me. The discussion posts were very good. And allowed engagement between myself and other students to kind of see their perspective on what we were learning and my own. And then like group assignments, so projects where I had to work with another student or another group of students.
Bonnie, Christine, anything you'd like to add?
I think short little essay projects over what you've watched in a video are great. I have a different experience with discussion boards. I'm not a fan, except there's a class I'm taking now. There's like 65 in the class. So everyone is posting Sunday night and it drives me crazy. I did have one class, I can't remember which class it was, but the instructor divided us into smaller groups, and that made it nice because you kind of, rather than having to sort through 64 different discussions, you only had to sort through 15, and you were able to interact more because you knew, Susie Smith, last week she said this, so you kind of get the feel of that personality a little more, whereas when you've got those great big discussion posts, honestly, I just post so I can get the grade, and so I can just say that I posted and get the points, because it's hard when you've got such a huge group to go through.
Yeah.
Bonnie, that's a good point. And considering, in an in-person class, having an entire 40-person class discuss at the same time, that would be challenging in person, even more so online. Chunking it out into smaller group discussion boards can be a really effective way to make sure that there is depth and breadth, and it's not just trying to chalk up those points, which we know can happen when you feel like you're getting buried in posts. Christine, other comments from you?
Yeah. On the discussion post front, I've had a few teachers require the first post be by like Thursday night, and then the interaction with your colleagues happen by Sunday night. That kind of avoids the end of week flood of responses and is helpful. And then some other teachers hide answers until you post your response. And then all of your colleagues' answers are unlocked, which just forces you to think, you know, because otherwise, guarantee students are going to scroll through and be like, what did other people say? Let me summarize instead of doing your own research. Yeah. Oh, and then, outside of discussion boards, I do have something to add about what's been the most helpful learning experience. Any assignment that approximates the real world really solidifies the learnings. And they're the most stressful assignments going into the semester when you see them on the syllabus, but after you get through them, you really retain the most knowledge from them. So I had one class that had us write case studies for actual patients about like what nutrition plan would you recommend for them based on their condition. I had another class that actually had us put in volunteer hours at a local food establishment and be in the kitchen prepping the food. And then another had us like go out and interview a professional in the field on their day-to-day life and write a little essay on it. So those really solidify the textbook learnings. Yeah.
Great examples. Experiential learning can definitely be incorporated into online courses. It might not seem as easily achievable at first glance, but honestly can be applied just as well, sometimes if not better than an in-person class format. Thanks for bringing that up, Christine. I want to go back in the chat a little bit. Barbara is asking a little bit about kind of course setup and communication at the beginning. She specifically asks, I like to provide everything students need to do for the whole semester as a schedule in table format. Is that overwhelming or helpful? So I'd ask that you respond to Barbara, and then additionally give some comments on about what kind of communication and engagement from your instructors you like to have and how that's helped with your learning.
Well, I kind of like to know what I'm going to have to be doing the whole semester, whether it's in the syllabus or a table format, whatever. I still like to have due dates though. I don't want you to just say, this is what you have to have done, and this is just the suggested time, because it's just like everything else. If you don't have a solid due date, you know, you just tend to put it off and then cram. So that's what I like and stuff. And then what was your second part of your question? You asked
what type of communication strategies have instructors used that you liked?
I like a weekly check-in. When you give the assignment, like they were saying earlier, some of those lectures, while depending on the subject matter, are still as new today in 2020 as they were when they recorded it in 2018. You know, they're fine lectures, but it's nice to have a check-in every week that just says, hey, you know, glad you're here. You made it through last week. You know, this week we're going to have a quiz over this. This is due, whatever, and just kind of give and it doesn't have to be long, you know, 3 to 5 minutes, whatever. And it doesn't always have to be video either. It can just be in the announcements section, just a kind of a weekly check-in and saying, hey, you guys all survived the first exam, and now this is what's coming up. I like that, like just a little weekly check-in at the beginning of the week.
Great, thank you. Antoinette, do you have anything to add?
I agree with everything Bonnie said. The weekly check-in is just so very helpful. I had one professor who every week he did a video, and it wasn't very long. It was like maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just depends. And he said, this week, this is what we're going to be focusing on. This is, you know, what you have, you know, to review before you turn in whatever's due at the end of the week. That was very helpful for me. Let's see, the table format. I think is great, because to be able to look ahead is so important. But I had a few teachers, and this is what I really love. They did not unlock the weeks ahead early. So that way I'm not confused, like, okay, wait, what week is this? Is this 3 or 5? Because sometimes I just don't even know. But if all the rest of those weeks are locked, I know, okay, I'm right here where I can access that information. And it just helped me to stay on task.
So having expectations of what to expect going in at the beginning, and then the material releasing as needed is a good strategy for you. Awesome. Christine, other thoughts on that?
I love a good table with deadlines, and I will print it out and highlight it as I go along through the course. And then for interactions with professors that really help, having a live, like, simulate office hours right before a test. You put out your study guide, we all go scramble and complete it on our own, and then you offer maybe an hour where we can dial into a Zoom call and pick your brain about parts of the study guide or questions before the exam is really helpful. And then of course record it for those who aren't able to make it to that one session.
Great suggestion, thank you. I've got a couple more questions left, but if there's any other questions from the group, I'd encourage you to put those in the chat and we'll be sure to address those. While we're waiting to see if anything else comes in, I'd like you to talk a little bit about group work and working with your fellow classmates. What has worked well? What has been challenging, either with group projects or having to communicate with your classmates? Open to anybody that'd like to share their experiences there.
I had a teacher who took an innovative approach. She had us sign contracts with each other in our 3-person group before, and it didn't have to be very long, but it was planning out our schedule for meetings, sharing our contact information, and then putting little protocols for scenarios like, if one of us is unreachable, what will we do? Or what's the escalation pathway if someone's not pulling their weight? And then at the end of the assignment, she had us fill out a little evaluation form on each other. And that just helped her to, like, take in all sides of the story and align on expectations from the beginning.
Great. I love that idea of having you guys discuss how those things are going to be handled up front. Was there like a template that she provided to help guide that initial discussion?
Yes. Yeah, it was a little template at first that we filled out.
Very good. Great. Antoinette, any thoughts on group work or communicating with classmates?
Right. Well, for me, I really enjoyed it. I mean, and still do. I enjoy discussion posts. Now, I agree with Bonnie. Those long posts, it can be hard. You can kind of get lost in the shuffle. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Let's see. One of the challenging things, I know we had a project once, and everyone's different ages and different backgrounds, and we had one person on our team who just would not pull their weight. And when I say pull their weight, I'm talking about just discussing the assignment with us. And so if, it didn't feel so good for me and the other teammate to have to let the professor know, hey, we worked on this by ourselves. That other person never showed up, and so that was kind of, we hated to do that, but we didn't think it was fair, for them to get a grade that they didn't participate in. So I don't know if there's a way. Well, I like what Christine said, having that contract, so that way you have an expectation of what each person, how they're going to play a part in a group assignment.
Yeah, I haven't had many group projects at all, so I don't have a lot of experience, but I do know, like, the evaluation at the end is key, just because, like what you said, you've got, at a group of 4, you've got 2 or 3 that are doing everything, and then this 4th person, the project's due Sunday night, and Sunday afternoon at 2 is messaging everyone, hey, where are we at? You know what, we're done. And that's frustrating.
it's great that all of you have had, a similar positive experience working in groups, but also know that there is an avenue to share successes and challenges so that the instructor, as Christine said, knows all sides of it and can kind of come to a conclusion, because they can't view that group work like they might in an in-person course. One of the topics that we get questions about a lot from online instructors, and what we're going to be focusing next week in the OCDI, is assessment. And so I'm wondering if each of you can talk a little bit about exams, final projects. What type of things were used to assess your learning? Of course, this might vary by class, but a big question has been, is proctoring services something you've used before, and what's that experience been like? Bonnie, I know that you've had some experience with proctoring, so I might ask you to share a little bit about that, but Antoinette and Christine, I'd encourage you to share about any type of assessment, proctoring or not, and how that's worked for you.
Yeah, proctoring has worked great before COVID because I was able to go to the local community college here and be able to have them proctor all of my exams. Examity was hit and miss. I've had good experience with it, and then I've had poor experiences with it. Right now I'm taking a calculus class, and so we have written exams. And so the exam time is like, I think it's 75 minutes, and you have to be able to, I had to go get an external camera, which is not a huge deal, but had to be able to view my whole workspace and everything. And then I have to scan and upload those pictures of the exam and send those in. That's been okay. I wish that the college was open again so we could go back to proctoring that way and stuff. I think like this particular class, it's open book, open notes that I'm having to take the written exam and get an external camera for. But I guess I don't know the way to cheat. So, I mean, I'm sure that's the reason it's there for. But I'm too old. I'm too old school. I don't know all the ins and outs to cheat. So, but Examity was not great because of the language barrier a lot of the times, but the community college was good. And I'd rather just, I don't know, pros and cons of both.
Great, thank you. Antoinette, Christine, anything else you'd like to share about assessments?
Quality of, I've never had any major problems with Examity, but I have noticed a range in quality of the proctors is not very consistent. You have some who are a little hyper attentive, and if you rustle their papers, they're like, ma'am, can you please stop and hold up that scratched piece of paper one more time? Like, I need to make sure you didn't swap anything out. And then you have others who are at the other extreme of the spectrum, and my husband can tumble into the room and ask what I want for dinner, and they don't even like notice that somebody came in, which would be bad if it was someone trying to give me answers. So yeah, the quality ranges a lot with Examity, but I don't have an option for in-person proctor, so I appreciate it.
A question from Melissa in the chat, great question. What has helped to create a stronger sense of community within an online class?
Well, I will say the interaction between myself and the other students that are taking a course is awesome when it's there. But like I said, I like that kind of thing. I don't mind doing discussion posts and working in small groups. Another thing that's been extremely helpful for me, as far as having a sense of actually being a part of the K-State, student body, is my interaction with my instructors. And trust me, I'm the student that sends the emails because I want to know. And I've not had one instructor who left me hanging or didn't provide for me the information that I needed to be successful with the assignment, whatever that might be. And so the other students and the professor or the instructor has really made me feel like, you know, I'm a part of this student body, and it feels great.
Yeah. I had an instructor, and perhaps this only works if you have small class sizes, but they had a weekly discussion video style. So instead of doing a forum, they would circulate like 4 or 5 questions we were going to discuss, and then all like 10 of us would get on Zoom chat and round robin. So again, for small student groups, that's a good way to feel connected. We really got to know each other.
I agree. I mean, with the only sense of community I had was when, not the only, but the main was when we did have those smaller discussion groups. It was just so great because we had them. I was thinking she said she was going to change it, but I don't remember her changing it throughout the whole semester. And we had that same group, and you kind of get to know, you know, what their style is and what their interests are. And you get to really kind of know that person in that short amount of time.
Follow up, many of you commented on being able to have that intimate group size for discussion, whether it be a discussion board or the video idea. What group size seems to be ideal for Zoom discussions? How many people should really be on the Zoom maximum?
10's coming to mind. I think that's what it was in my other group, 10 for video. But maybe Bonnie, how many were in your smaller text-based typing discussion groups?
I was thinking that was even smaller, maybe 5, but I think 10 or less, that still gets you a small enough group where you can actually read all of their discussion board posts and comment on the majority of them, or at least be able to interact with more than just a few.
I agree with both ladies with Zoom, because, you know, your limited space as far as the little squares. You just be mindful of that, because it's so cool to be able to see everyone who's in the Zoom session without having to click over, 10 times to see who all is there. So that, I don't know how many squares can fit on a screen, but then with the discussion post, I agree with Bonnie, those smaller groups, I think I've been in a discussion post of maybe, I don't know, maybe between 3 and 5. It's just so much easier to interact and, feed off of each other without feeling overwhelmed, like, oh, heck, where was my discussion post? And then you have to scroll for days to try to find what you said and who responded and then what you said to someone else. And so, yeah, keeping those small groups are powerful. They're very powerful.
Great summary. Thanks, Antoinette. Barbara asked in the chat, if you were given a prompt or thought-provoking question and expected to post a video clip answer rather than a chat post, would you like that?
I laugh because the first time that I was asked to do that for one of my courses, I felt so uncomfortable, like, oh my God, I have to post a video and like put it in the discussion so they get to see my face. But after a while, I became adjusted to it. But at first it was kind of like, whoa, I felt like it was kind of personal, But anyway, I wanted the grade, so I did it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like that, because then I have to think of my answer, then I have to memorize my answer, then I have to look flawless in the delivery, and then I have to maybe edit the footage. It seems like a lot of extra steps.
I agree. I think you'd have to edit it so many times, whereas the regular discussion post, you can type and you're like, oh no, that's not quite what I want to say, and you can edit it till you get it right and then post it. I would be more uncomfortable doing the video. Well, I've done one, but it wasn't my favorite.
So that's really funny observation, though, that we like the video discussions that are improvised, but we don't like being recorded. Even though we're asking instructors to record themselves for lectures.
That's a really great observation, Christine. And I think that there's something to be said about that feeling of having to be on while you're being recorded when it's just yourself, whereas more of a discussion, it's not quite as, the spotlight's not always right on you. Something that we've encouraged our OCDI participants to think about is not feeling like all videos have to be Hollywood ready with great editing and things like that, and being a little bit more transparent in their videos. And so maybe that's something our instructors might need to think about relaying to encourage our students as well if they plan to integrate videos into the course. Barbara shares that, Melissa shares that Barbara's question that you just addressed helped her think of another. What alternative instruction or course setup has helped you avoid reading or writing fatigue? Her experience so far teaching online has been a heavier load for students to read write than an in-person class. Could anybody speak to that? Maybe especially if you've had some in-person experience to contrast that to?
I don't really have a lot of experience because my experience of in-person classes were years ago. But I don't really get that read write fatigue. I don't know. It just seems like I think that as an online student, that's what you sign up for. I mean, breaking it up with the videos helps. So you can, kind of listen and take notes. And I'm a huge note taker. So, I mean, all the PowerPoints are great, but I rewrite all of them so I can absorb what's going on. But so no, I don't get that. I just think, that's part of it when you sign up online classes.
Well, I'll say I just last semester took a course, and the instructor, she did videos. I'm telling you, those videos are helpful for a person who's a visual learner. But not only that, in the book, and this book was a big daddy book, so it wasn't just, a few pages a chapter. She tell us this is where you want to really focus. You can skip over, this portion, but this is where the meat of the information is that you're going to need for an exam or that you're going to need for your assignments. That was extremely helpful for me because my time is crunched already. And so to know, oh, I need to go to page, 24 instead of starting at 2. Because she says this is where the meat of the information is. You can skip all that fluff and come right here. I also have another instructor who's like, hey, you don't even have to read the book unless you want to. I'm going to give you all the information. That's been very helpful for me. But then I have other courses where it is, for me, reading and writing fatigue. I'm tired. But like you said, Bonnie, I signed up for that when I took an online course. But I got to tell you, those instructors who really are mindful of their students and saying, hey, let me make it a little bit easier for them, to get this information, I'm appreciative to those instructors.
Antoinette, I think that's a great comment, and something that we have the OCDI participants go through is a course mapping exercise. And I would encourage all of our instructors on today to think about that when they're doing their course mapping and looking at learning outcomes and what content really does need to be consumed by the students to get them to those learning outcomes. As you said, Antoinette, you can read the whole book if you want, and for some courses you might need that, but what do they really need to meet those learning outcomes and helping them get there? Barbara has a great follow-up question and wonders if you felt more connected to people that you saw and heard speak. So if you had those video recordings rather than just reading their prose statements and chats. In the OCDI, we encourage our instructors to make welcome videos. If they can do the weekly check-in via video, that's more personal. Do you feel like that's helped you connect with your fellow students as well?
I don't think it really matters to me personally.
Yeah, I think it would help me personally to feel more connected to watch those videos, but it would probably take longer, right? Because I'm a speed reader versus watching the videos. So I might get annoyed at that. And then me making the video would stress me out.
good feedback. Leslie asked in the chat, can you tell a story about a successful or unsuccessful way an instructor handled an insensitive or inappropriate comment by a fellow student online? Has anyone had experience with that?
I've not had experience with that. There was once that we were doing a Zoom session and one of the students was out with friends or whatever, and they were doing inappropriate, like they were having inappropriate conversation in our Zoom session. And so she just kicked them out of the Zoom, which was great. But I think she probably noted that student and then dealt with them on the side. But she didn't give much thought or say a lot, at the time. So they didn't disrupt as much as they maybe thought that they did. So I thought it was handled well.
I've got one final question for the panelists, but if there's anything from the group, I'd encourage you to unmic and jump in now. Okay, well, we're going to end tonight. I'd like each of you to respond to what advice would you give an instructor about in teaching online? Bonnie, could we start with you?
Sure. I would just, I like having the week long to do it, posting things on Monday morning, Sunday night due dates, clear expectations of what's expected. And like I said, I like the weekly check-ins of just saying, okay, there might be some weeks where you have 3 20-minute videos to watch, and there might be some weeks where you have, 6 10-minute videos to watch, just kind of an outline at the beginning of the week saying, so we can kind of adjust to, oh, I'm not going to be able to get it all done Thursday night and Saturday morning, so we can kind of judge our week and plan our week accordingly, and due dates. So that way we can stay on track and just the clear expectations of what's going to be happening week by week.
Great, thank you. Antoinette, how about from you?
I agree with Bonnie, what she has shared. And I think what I said earlier was know the demographics of your students. Know what kind of loads your students are carrying, and just be mindful of that. Be mindful of that, kind of put yourself in the shoes of maybe a single mom and say, would a single mom be able to carry this load of work that I'm throwing on her? Or a single dad or whoever, but just be mindful of the demographics and that we're all different. And if there's something that you think your students need to know about your course, maybe it's going to be book heavy, say it. Don't have us jump in and then it's like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. But just keeping that, that openness and that honesty really helps. The expectations, like Bonnie said, we know when we look, at a syllabus, like, oh, this is going to be a whopper of a class. But that's good because that information is provided to us early on. So be aware, just be aware.
Thank you. Christine, how about from you?
I would say, the recorded lectures are a must-have to sum up, and then any digital reading that's required in the course, if it is available as part of the course versus going and purchasing textbooks. I'm glad to see that over the years we've gotten away from that. And a lot of you, 99% of you, make everything very accessible, and that is so appreciative. And then just in mapping out your course, just make it a nice variety of the student interacting with the content itself, with the faculty member, with the fellow students, and with the real world. Maybe like check each little box, have experience for each or something. Yeah, and then an updated syllabus and study guides are always welcome too.
Great, thank you. I did have one question sneak into the chat that I'll let anybody jump in on if they'd like. Melissa asks, what's the biggest mistake to avoid, both for instructors and for students? Anything spring to mind for any of you?
Absolutely. You have to be organized. You have to be organized. And that's for the instructor and the student. Be organized, and stay on top of your work. You can't wait until the weekend if it's due on a Sunday. Like, you're going to have to stay on top of it, prioritize, and make yourself a schedule. That's what's been most effective for me. And so that's my suggestion.
One thing I'd like to add, just online learning in general, that I think was handled incorrectly maybe, and hopefully we won't have this influx of this COVID again this fall. But if we do, I felt like the online teachers just kept, and rightfully so, business as usual for online students. And they did business as usual for online students. And I know that's what we're doing, but our lives were falling apart just like everybody else's. So I know they made concessions for, and I appreciate they did extend a lot of those concessions to online learners for the last semester with the pass-fail and things like that. But keep in mind, if something like that happens this fall, which God, hopefully it will not, but keep that in mind that, yes, it's the same for us because we're already doing online, but we have the same problems the in-person learners are having too, with as far as time and everything falling apart around us. We still have our jobs, and some had little kids at home, trying to teach and stuff like that. And so I just think that keep that in the back of your mind in case that happens. Hopefully it won't, but just in case.
Great points. Thanks. Great. Well, thank you so much, Bonnie, Antoinette, Christine. You've all been wonderful. This is one of my favorite parts, to hear from the students, because that's honestly what we're here and why we're doing this. So thankful that you guys were able to share your input. I also want to thank everybody from the OCDI cohort that was able to join us this evening. We really appreciate the participation that you've had over these past few weeks. This recording will be put in Canvas, in the Canvas course soon, so take a look for that if you'd like to reference it. And if you have any further questions or would like more details on what was discussed during the panel tonight, just message us through OCDI and we'll get you responded to. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.